intensely this week this passage. And one of the men I read behind is by the name of Randy Alcorn. He wrote a book called The Treasure Principle. And I want to be honest and tell you up front this morning, many of the things that I'm going to say to you are straight from Randy. I honestly could not say them better. So some of them are word for word. So I give Randy Alcorn credit for many of my thoughts today. What a great, incredible book he has given to the kingdom in that book. Why is it hard for us to become givers? There's many reasons. Many people are greedy, they're materialistic, they're idolatry, they're insecure. There's a mindset in America today of this: I've worked hard for my treasure and I'm not giving it away to anyone. There's that mindset. There's that mine attitude. If you have small children or you've ever raised small children, one of the first things they learn this word first, no. And then one of the second words they learn is mine. Mine. Our culture has a mind attitude. Look with me in your copy of God's Word, Ecclesiastes chapter 5, and listen to me. Don't get scared. I'm fixing telling you something. I got 8 points. But I'm going to be through quick. Okay? You're already halfway through the sermon because I did that earlier. Okay? So I got 8 points, and I would that you would do this. Take that bulletin, turn it over, write these 8 principles down. They will help you in the area of faith finances. Again, these are not all my original thoughts. I have tweaked them some, but these are not all my original thoughts. So I'm not asking you to write something down to bring glory and honor to me. First of all, no sermon I ever preached do I want it to bring glory and honor to me. But I want you to write these things down. Some of you, these things could really help. If you're a college student here today, I would beg you to think about these things and write them down. They'll help you one day. They can help you now. Let's jump in. Ecclesiastes 5, beginning in verse 10. We're going to take this verse by verse. The one who loves money is never satisfied with money, and whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with income. This too is futile. First of all, you have to remember who's writing this. Solomon is writing this. Solomon, 2 things we know about Solomon. He was the wisest man to have ever lived at that point, and he was the wealthiest man to have ever lived at this point. But point number 1 in this verse is the more you have, the more you crave. Get that now. The more you have, the more you crave. It's addictive. It's addictive. I've been watching some of the younger boys in the last couple of weeks here at our school, and a couple of them are starting their summer jobs, and I've been talking to some of them boys, and they think they are just rolling in the money. I mean, they think, I am getting this $9 an hour. I am going to be a millionaire before too long. But it's interesting to watch them. But getting money is addictive. It's a natural thing in the flesh. But learn what Solomon said. Look at it carefully in verse 10. The more you have, the more that you crave. The one who loves money is never satisfied. Listen, I don't care if you're making $10 an hour or you're making $150 an hour. That principle applies. The more you have, the more you crave. Point number 2. The more you have, the less content you become. Look at the latter part of verse 10. And whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with income. And Solomon says, this too is futile. Money is unsatisfying. You may say, Pastor, I would really like to find that out for myself. But again, I'm going to tell you, it's unsatisfying. Listen to the words of those men who I read at the very beginning. Vanderbilt, Rockefeller, Henry Ford. Those men could tell you it is unsatisfying. I heard about 2 businessmen who were on a trip, and they were flying together, and one went to get something to eat and came back, and his buddy was just getting off the phone, and he looked so down and depressed and aggravated and frustrated. He said, man, what is wrong with you? And he took a long sigh, and he said, I thought I was finally going to have a weekend to myself. I thought finally I could get some rest, but now I have to go supervise the repairs on my Florida vacation home. And he looked aggravated as he sat and called for his private jet to fly him to Florida to his vacation home. The more you have, the less content you become. Number 3, the more you have, the more hands out you have. Look at that in verse 11. When good things increase, the ones who consume them multiply. What then is the profit to the owner except to gaze at them with his eyes? You know what my first interpretation of that passage was? He's talking about having children. Because it seems like every time my phone rings, somebody on the other end is saying, "Hey, Dad, I need some money." But he's not talking about children. And don't misunderstand Solomon here. He is not talking about people who are coming in true and genuine need. You know what, though? The truth is, most people, not all, but most people who are true and genuine need are embarrassed to even ask for it. But he's not talking about those things. He's talking about people who take advantage and people who want to be close to someone who has money. I love this verse in the version, the Message. Look at the screen, and I've got it there for you. This is how the Message interprets that. The more loot you get, the more looters show up. That's pretty good. Let me tell you, Dwayne Garrett said this: money attracts human leeches. Money attracts human leeches. When you have money, you seem to have lots of friends. But it seems like when the money is gone, so are the friends. The more you have, the more hands out you have. Number 4, the more you have, the more worthless it becomes. Look at the latter part of verse 11 then. Then is the profit to the owner except to gaze at them with his eyes? What are you going to do? Just sit there and look at it? Our possessions sometimes then become owners of us. I will never forget when Kim and I were building our first home. And we were thinking about it. We were making the plans. We were getting the plans made. We were taking it to the bank. We were looking to see how much we could afford. I was taking it to my accountant, having him look at it and have him help me with it, and interest rates and all those things that you do when you're building a house. And we're thinking about this. And I will never, ever forget what Brother Archie said to me. Brother Archie said this. He said, "Chris and Kim, listen to me." He said, "Do not overspend on a house." Now listen, here's what he said. "Because all you can do is live in it." You know, Brother Archie was not the smartest man I ever met, but he was one of the wisest men I ever met. And he said to a young couple, his daughter and son-in-law, "Son, all you can do is live in that house. There are going to be other things that you want to do, and as you have more and more children, I'm not going to be able to fund you," he would say. "You're going to have to pay for them. All you can do with a house is live in it." What wise advice. The more you have, the more you see that it becomes worthless. Let me explain that to you a little bit more. And I'm not picking on anybody because I don't know anybody who's bought a boat recently. If you have, I'm just using this as an illustration, okay? You buy a boat. And you feel like you need to use that boat. And so you begin to use that boat. And it takes you out of church and out of your responsibilities from the Lord. You don't own the boat then. The boat owns you. Now, it may not be a boat for you. It may be something totally different. It may be your hobby. Men, it may be the brand new set of golf clubs or that brand new shotgun and ladies, I don't know what you spend it on. I can tell you what my wife spends it on, but I mean, don't let your possessions own you. The more you have, the more worthless it becomes. You know, I said that about Kim. I can tell you what she spends it on. She spends it on 3 boys. The more you have, the more worthless those things become. Number 5, I told you I was going to go quick. The more you have, the more you have to worry about. I'm telling you, that is the truth. The more you have, the more you have to worry about. You can't sleep. It leads to insomnia. How will I maintain my wealth? Let me prove that to you with a simple illustration that pretty much applies to all of us. Nowadays, it's commonplace for people to have more than one car. If you have 2 cars, you have twice as much to worry about, correct? Okay, because you got gas to put in 2 cars. You got 2 sets of tires. You got 2 oil changes. There's 2 of everything, simply because you have 2 vehicles. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Most of us do, but it gives me twice as much to worry about. You know, there was something refreshing in Africa when I was there. When I was there, those people had almost nothing. But you know what they also didn't have? Worries. Do an inventory right now. Think back to the last couple of weeks. You might even could think about yesterday. What did you worry about yesterday? Most of the things I end up worrying about, I really don't even have to have or need. You think about your life. The more you have, the more you have to worry about. We see that in verse 12. I don't want to skip the verse. Look at the verse 12. The sleep of the worker is sweet, whether he eats a little or much, but the abundance of the rich permits him no sleep. Have you ever stayed up at night worrying about how you're going to pay for something that you should have never bought to start with? Guilty as charged. We've been there. The more you have, the more you worry. Point number 6, the more you have, the more pain it seems to bring. Look at verse 13, and then we're going to jump to verse 17. There is a sickening tragedy I have seen under the sun, Solomon says. Wealth kept by its owner to his harm. Now, jump down to verse 17. What is more, he eats in darkness all his days with much sorrow, sickness, and danger. The more you have, the more pain it seems to bring. Let me tell you something this morning. There's some things we simply don't need. Some things we just don't need. Some things will hurt you if you have them. Let me tell you, I deal with families all the time. I deal with families at time of death a lot. And let me tell you, I can tell like that when I walk in to meet with that family about the death of their loved one and to minister to them and then begin planning the service. I can tell immediately if there's conflict in the family, and most of the time it's over money. Let me tell you this morning, what a tragedy. What a tragedy. Some of you may be in that boat. Let me just tell you as kindly and as loving as I can, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. I had no brothers and sisters, but I also had no inheritance. But I'm going to tell you, it's not worth anything to me to separate the relationship I have with my brother-in-laws and sister-in-laws. And it's not worth it to those 3 girls. And let me tell you this morning, Portia, your family handled the death of your parents with as great of dignity and love for each other. You modeled to your family how you handle those things. It's not worth it. The more you have, the more pain it seems to bring. Number 7, the more you have, the more you have to lose. Verse 14. that wealth was lost in a bad venture. So when he fathered his son, he was empty-handed. The more you have, the more you have to lose. Matthew Henry, great commentary writer, great preacher. Matthew Henry was talking about once when he was robbed, and they robbed him and took his wallet. And Matthew Henry said this, "Let me be thankful. First, because he never robbed me before. Secondly, let me be thankful because although he took my wallet, he did not take my life. Thirdly, because although he took all that I possessed, it was not much. And then fourthly, because it was I who was robbed and not I who was doing the robbing." The more you have, the more you have to lose. Number 8, verse 15. "As he came from his mother's womb, so he will go again. Naked as he came, he will take nothing for his efforts that he can carry." Watch, don't lose it yet. Nothing for his efforts that he can carry where? In his hand. Everything that is not given for eternity will be left behind. Now I paused right there because I want to explain something to you in this verse. It doesn't say he takes nothing with him. Don't miss this. It doesn't say that the man will take nothing with him. What it says in the verse, it says he takes nothing in his hands. Tangible, material, possessions. Oh, but friend, let me tell you, what he does take with him is his character, his conscience, and his soul. And that's what you will take with you to eternity, and that's what I will take to me with eternity. Just 2 weeks ago, I gave you this statement. You can't take it with you, but you can send it on ahead. Let me close this morning. Let me give you some practical applications as I close this message. 3 simple points. This life is temporary. This life is temporary. We need to, you know that. You know that. But boy, how many times do I need to be reminded this life is not going to last forever? I got word this morning of just another person who went to be in eternity. Bert came in and told me someone this morning in his family who's gone to be with the Lord. This life is temporary. We know that. So what are you investing in? What are you investing in? Application number 2. This is a great point. Again, I give credit to Randy Alcorn for this. Live for the line, not the dot. I'm going to explain that. Live for the line, not the dot. If you look at this next picture, you see a dot with a line. Let me explain the dot and the line to you. The dot represents our present life on this earth. That's where you and I are right now. The line going to your right represents eternity. And that line's going to go on and on and on. If I could have really done it the way I want to, I would have took the line all the way off the page because it's going to keep going. Live for the line, not the dot. Live in light of eternity, not living for the here and the now. Live for the line, not the dot. What do you live for? How are you investing? Let me ask you this simple question, and you people who come to church here regularly, no, I don't talk about money incessantly. But let me ask you, are you a tithing person? Do you tithe not because the church needs the money? I believe with all my heart, and I've seen it over and over again, God's going to take care of our church. If you want to be obedient and if you want to receive the blessings of God, give to the Lord your tithes and offerings. I'm telling you, I met with a couple this week. I'm doing premarital counseling. And I said, begin your marriage tithing. Every one of our boys have cut grass From the moment they've been able to get on a lawnmower and they have cut grass and they've cut neighbors' yards and they've earned some money and they've got some money. And the very first question Kim and I ask, okay, here's the money. We cash the check from the neighbor, but take out your tithe. You teach them while they're young. Let me tell you what, I've been tithing since I was 8 years old, and I have never missed it. You know why? Because I don't even know to miss it. It's gone from the beginning. Furthermore, it's not 10% that's God's, it's all of it that's God. Live for the line, not for the dot. Last application. Generosity is the only cure for materialism. Let me close. My dad died in 2001. They were living in South Carolina. We moved Mom here, and we moved all of her stuff here. She went from a home to 2 rooms in the trailer that used to sit on this property. Kim and I knew what we were going to have to do, and we did as most people do. We had a yard sale. There was no way for Mom to get a whole entire house full of furniture in 2 rooms, and we had a yard sale. When my mom then went to the nursing home in 2007, we had another yard sale. Then when my mom died in 2010, we kept some things of sentimental value. And then we saved those things because we knew Hunter's senior yard sale was going to be approaching. You say, Pastor, what in the world is your point? And I will never forget a friend of mine in this church as her mother was dying, and Kim and I were in that room as that mother had passed away in a nursing home. And she said, Chris, it's a sad day for me in some ways. In other ways, my mom's with the Lord. She said, but as I'm starting to pack up this stuff, here's the reality. Everything my mom and dad worked for all their life is going to end up in a yard sale or packed up in a couple of boxes that fit in the back of my car. I'm going to tell you what, the same thing will be true for me and you and you and you and you and you. Here's the question. Are you living for the dot? Or are you living for the line? But don't miss this. It applies to everything in your life, not just money. What are you living for today? The dot or the line? Will you bow your heads this morning? Lord Jesus,